we talked about Miami in terms of how they weren't shooting well. But again, we talked about this in the beginning of the segment. Well, neither did Denver. So what's going to happen when both of these teams decide to click? Do we think that Miami has an absolute chance, or do we think that Denver is just going to be that too good to overcome that thing? And that's the part that I'm curious about. I do think that, if both teams find a way to get on their cylinders, I still think that Denver has the more power, and I don't think that Miami will have enough. I think Miami makes it closer, and I think that Miami could potentially get, some games out of this, but I don't necessarily think that that is the series. I just think that the Nuggets just have everything right now. And this is not to disrespect what the Miami Heat has done, because what they have done has been remarkable thus far. And I think we have to give them all the credit in the world. But they're the eighth seed.
You've been on here calling Jimmy Himmy all postseason. So you've been all the time.
Right.
So you've been
giving also
flowers.
The eighth seed. They didn't belong here, Nat. Like, let's be real, right? We didn't see I mean, listen.
Jimmy Butler said that is not true. He said that is not true.
He did say that. And I love a confident man. I love a person that's willing to stand on it, right? And he stood on it. But they were the eighth seed. I mean, we just have to be honest about how they got here. And I think that it's fair to say that a team that's the number one seed, that has a guy that does triple doubles literally in his sleep, they're going to be the team that's going to be hard to beat, and not the other way around. And that's really what this boils down to.
Okay. Did you have a pick in this series?
I picked Denver. I mean,
In how many games?
I said 5, but I wonder if I would like to see, Miami fight. I want to see them fight. I just don't know where that's going to come. You said that they mentioned that they wanted to get in the paint. Okay, but who's meeting you there when you get there? It's a big guy over there in Denver. What's going to happen?
Denver is not some crazy defensive stopper team.
No, they're not. And that's very true. And you're right about that. And then we know that the Heat has this very crazy zone thing that they do. So they're not out of it. Man, listen, if the threes ain't going to rainbow like they want, and they have to go into the paint, I just don't know how this is going to turn out. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you. I mean, I picked Denver 2 and 6, but I'll just say this last thing before I go, because we have some company helping that coming that will really help us break this down and knows, one of these teams very well, but knows everything. And that is Nekias Duncan. So can't wait to see him. But, I think that with the Heat, this is what I think it comes down to. Denver is clearly the better team. They are clearly the more talented team. But I largely think they're the more talented team because they have the best player in the series, and who many would argue is the best player in the NBA, right? And so he's just a tier 1 guy. And when you typically speaking, in NBA history, when you have the best player in the series, that creates like just another level of advantage to you. And as great as Jimmy, the Butler, Himmy, Buckets, playoff Jimmy, all the nicknames, all of them has been, he's not that level. He's not that level of player. And even if he can be that level of player, he still has not demonstrated the ability to do it consistently, which is how the Celtics were able to come back in the last series after the Heat went up 3-0. Literally, it was Jimmy. Jimmy plays better in game 4, in game 5, like any of those games 6, and the Heat win. And that's why people were saying Caleb Martin should have been.
Very odd, because I think Jimmy had like 29 points in game 4, but I don't know. I mean,
no, but it was a lot of his no. It's just he was not being impactful the way he needed to be. He was shooting poorly. He was very inefficient. He didn't have the impact he needed to be, and I don't want to say anyone who's putting up stats is empty. That's not the argument I'm trying to make, but you can have a big game in terms of the counting stats and it not be a great game, and
sure. And that's a fair argument for sure. Right. But I think what is considered a bad game is subjective, right? And I think that's the part that, that's the part that where we go, because to me, yes, he struggled, and that's completely fair. But I think that there's a part of where your teammates are supposed to back you up. That's what they're supposed to do.
And they did. And that's why we're saying, but they did. And that's why we're saying, like, if he would have did, because the role players in Miami, they played. Remember, they lost. They lost Gabe Vincent for a game, but Caleb, that's why his name was in conversations. So it was like, your squad is showing up. Where are you, baby? Like, where are you, Buckets? We need you. And so, and he said it, I believe it was in game 6. Like, look, if I just play better, we win. So, I mean, he knows it. Everyone knows it. It's not to say he wasn't great, but my only point was just like the consistency. It wasn't an awful, like he was awful, but he wasn't impactful. He wasn't impactful the way that you need him to be. And they need Jimmy.
No, putting up 35 in Boston, baby, that's pretty impactful to me. In Boston, game 1.
Yes. No, but I'm not saying the whole series. I'm talking about consistently over the series. Like the margin of error in this series is not there. Like to me, the difference is not really the size. Like, yes, Denver has the size advantage, but it's that Denver has more versatility. They have more ways that they can play, and they have a larger room for error. So when you ask the question, what happens when they start hitting their shots? Well, yeah, if the Miami is hitting their shots, it will still be a competitive game. But if Miami isn't hitting their shots, then we got problems because they just don't have as many different options of where they can go.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.